Doors, brain, saxophone, organ. Trap, 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 trap drum. Tiptoes up and down the bass line. Faces cluster, cluster. Faces, faces, faces cluster. Steel and cars. Conveyor belts. Belts of conveying and belts. Signs. Stutters. Saying, Trenton mates, the world takes. Players, Olympians, Saturday afternoon, 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 Saturday afternoon. Kidney-shaped bar. Dirt roads. Crisscross. 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 Crossing and crissing and criss and crossing. Mountains, skies, seas. Honky tonks. Wherever the blues dare to travel. Swimmers diving in Beijing, dance and turns. Beijing diving and swimming. Tiptoe turns to say, okay guys, see if you can play this. She executes a backflip, a triple spin, a half twist held between now and then, and jackknives through the water. And it is what pours out of the hole. Now.
The Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards represents a celebration of the profound impact brave writers have had on our world. And every book selected by the awards can better illuminate who we are. And each story that focuses on the issue of racism has the ability to connect us to a deeper truth which has the power to last forever.
When I think about Edith Anisfield-Wolf and who she was, she could have done anything with her money. But the poet decides we need to shine a light on racism in the society.
She's a woman that quietly did her own thing. She ran her father's business with him. When she was a child, he said, "Help me figure out how to make our city a better place."
Just knowing that someone from my own community could come up with something like this, using curiosity, imagination, forward thinking, is really something that pushes me to think about what can books do and how can we use literature to inspire the next leaders of our communities.
I think it's a really significant thing to think, like, what if stories can change the world? That's what she saw, that's what I see in her work, and that's what the awards represent, that's what her life represents to me.
There ought to be some recognition for the people who have the courage to focus on this topic that's so painful. At the same time, I also find Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, and in their books, there is Black joy. If I read all of Toni Morrison's Beloved, eventually I'm gonna get to the happy ending. But you gotta read the whole story, and then you understand why folks are so happy, you know, that they survived.
Disinherited people who had dared only to dream of freedom.
She won't live long, Lord, Lord, she won't live long.
And poetry does this as well, where you go underneath the language and underneath even the feeling.
When someone picks up an Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winner, we want it to be a feeling of discovery. We want it to be a moment of quiet and reflection. We want it to be a moment of questioning and potentially transform the way that you think.
It matters that their voices are heard, and Anisfield-Wolf gives people the opportunity to be themselves and to be heard.
Every time I see one of these new authors and writers, I'm like, this is teaching me another way to think about humanity. And so I think the ultimate goal and the importance of this award is that this is a never-ending story. And this is a story that has to keep going. And every year, there's a new piece of it. And I think Anisfield-Wolf just sheds light on all of these multifacets, and we're never going to finish the story. What it does tell us, though, is who we are, and also who we want to be. You know, how do we become better? This is one way we do it, this books. And I think we're going to do it one book at a time.
Good evening, and welcome to the 90th Annual Anisfield-Wolf Book Award Ceremony, presented by the Cleveland Foundation. Please welcome the esteemed Anisfield-Wolf Book Award jurors and honorees. To begin our program this evening, please welcome to the stage Cleveland Foundation President and CEO, Lillian Curry.
Good evening. Welcome to the 90th anniversary of the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards. Tonight, we gather not only to celebrate 9 decades of remarkable literature, but we gather to honor the enduring power of one woman's vision, Edith Anisfield-Wolf. 90 years ago, Edith, a poet, philanthropist, and a quiet but fearless changemaker, recognized the power of literature. She believed in its capacity to confront injustice, challenge systems, and expand our understanding of one another. She believed in the power of words to move our hearts, and in doing so, move society forward. And she knew that the work would never be finished. That is why she permanently endowed this prize, so that it would outlive her, so that we would be here tonight, so that the vital conversations that it fosters would never cease, and so that we can continue to plant trees today that will grow and provide shade for generations to come. This is the legacy the Cleveland Foundation is honored to carry forward today and every day in the future. And in tonight, in her honor and in her bold spirit, we are doubling down. We are making a bold statement that literature matters, that the writers who challenge us to imagine a more just society are more essential than ever. So it is with tremendous pride that I share with you tonight, you're first to hear, that beginning this year, with this class of winners, and going forward, we are tripling the cash prize. And it's important, we are tripling it from $10,000 to $30,000. That means that this prize, founded right here in Cleveland 90 years ago, now stands twice the size of the Pulitzer. Why? Why are we doing this? Because this is what Edith would have wanted. To invest not just in the work, but in the writers themselves. To give them the support, space, and recognition they deserve. To continue to illuminate and shape our collective future. This milestone would not be possible without the deep commitment of the Cleveland Foundation's unparalleled board of directors and staff, who across generations have upheld Edith's intentions and have been the stewards of her incredible endowment that now make it possible to increase this prize to this catalytic level. Also, the prize would not be possible without the dedication and insight of our brilliant jury, a group of exceptional leaders who approach the selection process each year with care and rigor. This evening, you will hear from them as they introduce and celebrate the remarkable 2025 honorees, whose groundbreaking new work stands shoulder to shoulder with the most significant literary contributions of the past century. Tonight marks one more historic moment. For the first time ever, we welcome the return of more than 20 past winners here tonight. These luminaries have traveled from near and far to stand with this year's winners in reflection and celebration as we honor the legacy of 90 years of the Anisfield-Wolf canon. Would all the past winners, this year's winners, and the members of the jury please stand so everyone can give you a warm welcome to Cleveland. We'll turn the lights out. We are also deeply honored to be hosting this event at the Maltz Performing Arts Center at Case Western Reserve University. This space holds special meaning. It is the spiritual home of the Temple Tifereth Israel, where Edith's husband, Eugene Wolfe, served as the president. It was a place that helped shape Edith's deep and lifelong commitment to justice. I want to give a special thank you to President Eric Kaler, who is with us tonight, and the entire team at Case Western Reserve University for their generous partnership in making this event here possible. And finally, thank you to all of you who are here tonight for cherishing each of these authors, their books, and Edith's vision. At the Cleveland Foundation, we are profoundly grateful to be the guardians of this literary legacy. It is woven into our DNA, and we are inspired by it every day. Because at the heart of these awards is a powerful idea that one person can make a lasting difference, that one poet from Cleveland could set in motion a prize that 90 years later still speaks boldly and clearly. It is in that spirit that I am honored to introduce a woman who is shaping the next chapter of this incredible story, Courtney Morrow. Courtney is the visionary new director of the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards, a celebrated poet in her own right. Courtney has brought bold imagination, deep integrity, and an unwavering commitment to growing and amplifying these awards. She is ensuring that Edith's legacy not only endures, but evolves for the next 90 years. So please join me again in welcoming Courtney Morrow to the stage.
Thank you for that introduction, Lillian. It is nearly unfathomable to me that a single poet could have sparked a new canon of literature, yet here we are, celebrating 9 decades of truth-telling through literature, thanks to Edith Anisfield-Wolf. This night is a sacred night, where we all descend from whatever pocket of the universe we've been given to come together here at the Maltz Performing Arts Center, taking respite from our daily lives, the joy and the pain, to bear witness to the courageous ones, the writers. Tonight we honor the over 200 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winning writers who, in the face of unimaginable odds, have had the will, the tenacity, and the drive to ask hard questions of our times. Why do we let fear and hate divide us? How can we come closer together again? What is on the other side of this reckoning? How do we protect this planet we call our home? The writers pose the questions and pen their way towards answers. In doing so, they open and challenge our minds to be more empathetic, to imagine beyond ourselves, to face the dark parts of our humanity, to be reminded of the joy and pleasure we inherit. Tonight, we honor the power of literature to transform and to transcend. What an honor it is to be standing up here in front of you in my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, as the new program director of the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards. This is the place where stories found a home in me, on the front porch of my grandma's house, on the shores of Lake Erie, in the wooded canopy of our forest city. After a decade of fighting for literacy and the literary arts, it's a dream come true that stories have led me right here to this moment. It is with great responsibility and pride that I take on this role in stewarding Edith Anisfield-Wolf's legacy. I'd like to thank the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards Advisory Committee, as well as the 90th Anniversary Host Committee, who have been instrumental in shaping this weekend celebration, as well as helping to write the next chapter of the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards. I also want to express tremendous gratitude to the 2025 Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards jury, Peter Ho Davies, Charles King, Taya Miles, Disha Filial, and Natasha Trethaway. They have had the challenging task of scouring hundreds of submissions in order to find the landmark titles that will fundamentally change the way we think about race and injustice, and they have done so with such great integrity, discourse, and scholarship. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to our new jury member, Luis Alberto Urrea, a Guggenheim Fellow, Pulitzer Prize finalist, author of 19 books, and distinguished professor of writing at the University of Illinois, Chicago. We hope this weekend is a warm introduction to Cleveland and to your jury service. Of course, our jury is led by none other than Pulitzer Prize winning poet, former poet laureate of the United States, and the 2021 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winner for her nonfiction title, Memorial Drive, Natasha Trethewey. Natasha Trethewey is a force in the literary world. Her ability to excavate Black history and intertwine it with the personal is unparalleled. There is no one that I know more committed to the possibility that letters bring to this world. As jury chair, Natasha has her pulse on the forefront of innovation. From establishing finalists for the first time in the history of the awards, to awarding the first ever graphic memoir in our history, her decisive eye and commitment to literary excellence is charting an unparalleled path forward for the awards. With that, please join me in welcoming to the stage Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards Jury Chair, Natasha Trethewey.
Good evening, Cleveland and Courtney's hometown. This is such an exciting evening. One of the beauties of the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards is that for 90 years now, they have always been relevant. That enduring relevance is due in large part to the focus of the awards that recognizes the most timely and compelling storytelling, poetry, and scholarship related to race and injustice. This year, in our tumultuous historical moment, that relevance is even more apparent, and the books recognized by the Anisfield-Wolf Awards even more necessary. The Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards endure as a megaphone for amplifying voices that otherwise may not have been heard, and for showcasing stories that inspire empathy, understanding, and action. The awards have endured through the ever-changing climate of American life, times of war and peace, economic prosperity and economic decline, civil rights advancements, and ongoing struggles. The awards recognize the courage of writers to bear witness to the world. The way that Martin Luther King Jr., in his 1959 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winning title, Stride Toward Freedom, bears witness to the power of the people in his documentation of the Montgomery bus boycott. The way that Louise Erdrich, in her 2009 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winning novel, The Plague of Doves, forces the reader to bear witness to a century of descendants grappling with the fictional 1911 lynching of 3 Native lives. The way that Tracy K. Smith, in her 2019 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award-winning poetry collection, Wade in the Water, bears witness to the spiritual songs of the nation's most forgotten, from the Gullah Geechee to the African-American soldiers in the Civil War. The authors we honor today, all brilliant and all courageous, enrich the legacy of the canon while also becoming part of it. Their books fortify a canon of literature unlike any other. I'm proud to be a small part of that rich legacy. Receiving the Anisfield-Wolf Book Award for my memoir has been one of my most treasured honors. Indeed, beyond the monetary award, which is so much bigger now, and the essential exposure, the Anisfield-Wolf Book Award's greatest gift may be its affirming recognition. Affirmation that truth-telling and soul-bearing matter and deserve those things deserve to be celebrated and shared. Affirmation that all of us on this noble quest, winners, finalists, entrants, and even those still toiling in anonymity, matter. Now, as jury chair, I am both honored and humbled to lead this incredibly committed, thoughtful, and accomplished group of jurors who are devoted to the rigorous work of selecting each new class of winners. All of us grasp the weight of this role and our sacred responsibility as individuals and as a group to uphold the integrity and mission of what has become one of America's most essential literary traditions. And now, without further ado, let's start meeting tonight's award-winning writers. For our first presentation, in the nonfiction category, please join me in welcoming two Anisfield-Wolf jurors, Taya Miles and Charles King.
Hello, you all. It's a treat and delight to be back. As writers, we're often driven by unanswered questions. Back in 2016, literary scholar Jonathan D.S. Schroeder's pressing question was this: what happened to the son of famed abolitionist Harriet Jacobs? Schroeder was hitting dead ends until, on a whim, he searched the name of Harriet's brother in a historical database. There, in all capital letters, he saw these words: the United States governed by 600,000 despots. A true story of slavery. Jonathan had stumbled upon an autobiography by John Swanson Jacobs, published in Australia in 1855, and then largely lost to time. He knew he had rediscovered a story that needed to be told and that had to be done with depth, accuracy, context, and sensitivity. To achieve this, the New York Times wrote that Schroeder, quote, transformed himself from an interpretive literary scholar into an old-fashioned archive hound.
Indeed, Schroeder stayed hot on Jacobs's remarkable trail that spanned continents, and in doing so, uncovered traces of the man that previously had been scattered to the winds. The result is a stunning achievement of autobiographical writing, political commentary, historical sleuthing, and critical interpretation. The United States, governed by 600,000 despots, brilliantly speaks to pressing themes in our own time: tyranny, despotism, the abuse of political power, migration, statelessness, race, and radicalism. A core tenet of the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards is to elevate voices that have been marginalized or unheard Through his dedication to telling John Swanson Jacobs' story, Jonathan has honored that in a unique and powerful way. Please join us in welcoming to the stage the 2025 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winner for nonfiction, Jonathan D.S. Schroeder.
Wow, this gathering is incredible, and it's an honor to be here. For almost 9 years, I've been having conversations with a time traveler named John Swanson Jacobs. This particular time traveler does not need to speak with his mouth because the words he leaves behind speak for him. Here is John Jacobs. Woe to that country where the Son of Liberty has to rise up out of a sea of blood. These words are like sheet lightning, jumping between soil and stars, soldering earth and sky, scorching the air with flashes of illumination. Here he is again. There is nothing in the catalog of crime but what can be found in this unnatural hell on earth. The slave's life is a lingering death. Written in 1855 in Australia, as far away from America as possible, Jacobs's words are often as true today as they were then, to the point that sometimes I wonder if this isn't time traveling, if this is a nation stuck in time like a broken record. For taking John Jacobs at his word returns us to the rottenness at the core of this nation's very foundations. As we reckon with the fact, and this is his claim, that in 1776, the American nation embarked on 2 experiments simultaneously, one in democracy, the other in tyranny. And right now, we know all too well which one is winning. My father taught me to hate slavery, but forgot to teach me how to conceal my hatred. Robbery is robbery. It matters not whether it was done by 1 man or 1,000,000. So now that John Jacobs' narrative is back in the world, we might ask a question. What is the legacy of John Jacobs and his sister Harriet? How can we read despots and incidents in the life of a slave girl together now? While the siblings' legacy remains to be defined, these texts collectively raise a profound question. What would it mean to write a history of race, sex, and gender exploitation in America, in which unjust power is attributed not to an individual, nor to a class of people, but to the nation itself? He continues, if acts of cruelty can be considered an evil, they are a necessary evil, and you can only remove the evil by removing the cause. For the Jacobses, the person who uses the whip and the person who orders the whipping are not solely at fault. This is why, in contrast to virtually all freedom narratives, John Jacobs refuses to depict Black pain and suffering. Instead, he asks readers to sign a revolutionary contract by tracing bodily and psychic pain to their sources, the master and the state, pointing a finger squarely at the slave owners, politicians, and people who maintain unjust laws and institutions. He calls all tyrants, all despots, all legalized robbers out by name. Here is John Jacobs again. No law, unless there be one that can change my nature, can make property of me. Give me liberty with a cannibal rather than slavery with a professed Christian. What if we tell the stories of Americans like John Jacobs, who did not wait around to receive rights, but actively decided to seek freedom elsewhere, in other lands? What if we understood citizenship and human dignity as something that can be seized from below, not simply given from above? Here is John Jacobs in Brooklyn in 1850, after the passage of the Second Fugitive Slave Act. If there be anyone here tonight who wants to know my name, tell him it is John S. Jacobs of North Carolina, and that I am an American citizen, that I never denied that name, neither did I ever disgrace it. Here he is in London in 1861, 11 years after he left the US for what proved to be the 22 out of 23 years of the remainder of his life. If the American flag is to be planted on the altar of freedom, then I am ready to be offered on that altar, if I am wanted. If it must wave over the slave, with his chains and fetters clanking, let me breathe the free air of another land, and die a man and not a chattel. And here we are now, in 2025. I want to thank the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards, the Cleveland Foundation, City Club of Cleveland, all of the judges for creating this platform for John Jacobs' words and his many lives. Thanks to Melissa Huber and Courtney Morrow for amazing organizing and incredible support. Colleen Kowalski for curating a list of where to thrift and get books and records. I'm very excited for when the awards are over. But to be serious, and given the time in which we live now, a time where genocide is fully funded, dissent silenced, and universities are all mysteriously suddenly experiencing structural deficits, I want to shout out and single out the National Endowment for the Humanities for giving me 11 months to write and research this project, which could not have turned out the way it is otherwise. Most of all, I'm thankful to Harriet and John Jacobs for giving us their stories and the example of what it means to live with no country but the world. How can we put their words and the words of their spiritual descendants first? Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards juror and 2017 fiction winner Peter Ho Davies to present this year's Memoir Award.
Good evening, Cleveland. You know, it's so fantastic to be in this space and to see all of you here. It is why a friend of mine calls Cleveland the best red city in the United States. I just had walk-up music. I'm in a good mood. It's fantastic. When we got our hands on the graphic memoir Feeding Ghosts, we knew we were on to something special. And wouldn't you know it, a few weeks after selecting Feeding Ghosts as the Anisfield-Wolf winner for Memoir, the Pulitzer Prize jurors offered some positive affirmation of our choice. We were certainly delighted by the news that yet another Anisfield-Wolf recipient had also won a Pulitzer Prize, but we weren't surprised. This book, the first ever graphic memoir to be chosen as an AWBA winner, is a marvel to behold, taking us on a sweeping, multi-generational epic journey that manages to combine the history of 20th century China with an intimate family story. Wasting precious little white space, Tessa takes readers across oceans, continents, and decades in a quest to make whole a family and restore a home. Tessa fed these ghosts for nearly a decade before seeing her book, her first, in print. On her graphically styled website, she credits 3 great loves: community, wilderness, and motion, for carrying her through the long creation process. And after a whirlwind award season, which also includes winning the National Book Critics Circle John Leonard Prize for Best First Book, she headed into the back country, where she vowed, quote, to stare at the Rogue River, her favorite, for at least a week. Fortunately for all of us here, Tessa has returned from the wilderness to join us this evening. Let's give a very warm welcome to Tessa Hulls, the 2025 Anisfield-Wolf Award winner.
Hello, everyone. I really just don't know what to say. This whole process has rendered me speechless, and it is an incredible and overwhelming honor to join this legacy and become part of the Anisfield-Wolf lineage. I am somebody who likes to immediately cannonball into things with both feet, so I wanted to read one page from my book and then talk to you about something that's going to seem like a completely unrelated tangent. My grandmother's body escaped China, but her mind did not, and her adult life was spent as little more than a shell to hold her ghosts. My mother learned how to grow a life around her damage, but beneath the surface, her ghost seethed in the chasms ripped through her core. We survive trauma by denying it has happened, and neither my mother nor her mother was able to see the ghosts that swarmed them. But they stood out clearly for me. Maybe this is what it means to be the child of immigrants, forced to bear witness as the first generation, far enough from the pain to be able to see how deeply it is there. I wanted to read that page so that we're thinking about this question of bearing witness, and then for the tangent that I swear is going to make sense. Just out of curiosity, how many of you have seen the 80s movie, The Never-Ending Story? Yeah? Okay, great. This is not going to make any sense if you haven't. So, how many of you know that it's a book? Maybe some of you? So the movie only covers the first third of the book. And when I was a kid, I thought that it was a literal, never-ending story, which for a child desperate to escape where she was, that seemed like heaven. So I was very disappointed when it turned out to be a finite paper object. Anyways, it belongs to one of my favorite genres, a children's book that's not actually written for children. It's a story masquerading as something far less complex than what it is, using the scaffolding of an adventure to trick you into entering a profound meditation on loss, memory, duty, grief, and regret. The Cliff Notes movie version goes like this. An isolated, bullied little boy named Bastian stumbles upon a wondrous book. He ditches school and hides in an attic and begins to read about the land of Fantasia, a world whose very foundations are being ripped apart by a nihilistic force called the Nothing. A hero, Atreyu, is chosen to travel to all corners of the kingdom to find what ails Fantasia and its ruler, the childlike empress, and to discover how they might be saved. And so he gallops off, first by horse, then by luck dragon, on a series of epic quests, marked by great perseverance and equally great loss. And from his attic, Bastian reads along. So in the end, Atreyu fails. He stands before the childlike empress in the one remaining fragment of their destroyed world, and he wails that he did not find the cure. She smiles back, serene and implacable, and replies, "Oh, but you did. The whole quest thing, that was a bait and switch. You did all those things, experienced that loss, because the real task was to connect with a human child and bring him to our world through your story. And you did. And he's here with you now. And he can save us by giving me a new name." And she turns and she addresses Bastian directly. "Isn't that right, Bastian?" Bastian bolts upright in his darkened attic, thinking, whoa, 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 this isn't real. This isn't my story. This isn't my task. And it wasn't his task until he started reading, until a book brought him into someone else's story and thus made him responsible for its care. That is the wonder of books. They engender empathy, which in turn becomes accountability. My family was trapped beneath the weight of a broken story, and though I did not seek this task and actively ran from it for many, many years, going as far away as Antarctica, where I realized I actually could not go further. But some part of me always knew I had been given my voice in order to fulfill a duty. My mom and grandma did not possess the safety to carry their story home, but the sacrifices that they made meant that I, in my American audacity and my American privilege, did have that power. And thus I held a responsibility to be both Atreyu and Bastian, to undertake the quest of writing us a new name to release us from our past. I love this genre of not-for-children children's books because they disguise their power. You take a story about literature as a radical force for transformative empathy, and you hide it behind a grinning luck dragon. Or you take an academic treatise about the reverberations of Chinese history across the fractured generations of our most intimate bonds, and you encase it behind the false simplicity of a cartoon. The Anisfield-Wolf Awards, in its own words, is the only juried American book prize focusing on works that address racism and diversity. I don't have to tell anyone in this room that we're living through a violent backlash, that terrified and terrifying outburst of a waning empire clinging to the perceived safety of dead names, attempting to both pedestalize and return to a past that was never real. But no amount of vitriol and fear can stop a story, and the generations of books honored by these awards are acts of empathetic sedition. As authors, we're so often asked, why did you make your book? This question has always puzzled me because it implies there was a choice. We make our books because we have to, but what we can't see from our isolated drawing tables are all the people reading by candlelight in abandoned attics, coming to the realization that this is their story too. Stories reach out and hold one another across all borders, giving us both the power and the responsibility to write into being our own new names. In the past few months, as I've tried to wrap my head around the truly unbelievable, like in the literal sense of unable to believe, turn of events that has coalesced around my book, I've been reflecting on the words of Toni Morrison. If you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. Receiving the Anisfield-Wolf Award has given me the power, and with that, more responsibility. I'm going to think long and hard about how to best use those things in tandem. So thank you to everyone who is a part of this award, this legacy, and this story for bringing me into this community and into this ongoing call to arms.
Please welcome to the stage Anisfield-Wolf Book Award juror, Disha Filial, to present this year's Fiction Award.
Good evening. Danzy Senna had long wanted to write her LA novel. With her 6th book, Colored Television, she did just that. But in a tinsel town where stories and themes are often recycled, repackaged, and regurgitated, Danzy masterfully delivers an untold LA story, one that veers clear of formula or predictability. I was interested in this other class space of Blackness, she recently told an interviewer. This creative class where there's a lot of wealth of culture, but the bank account is low. The reality of just such a bank account and its ominous implications are ever present for Colored Television's protagonist, Jane, who is struggling to write her 2nd novel with the hope that it will bring her tenure, financial security, and recognition. Jane's journey reveals the complex navigation of race in America, specifically that of mixed-race creators who often find themselves confronting stubborn conventions and barriers, as well as the ethical, practical, and sometimes financial decisions on how best to navigate them. Colored Television is a masterclass in satire and the constant wrangling our humanity requires of us. As I shared in the citation for Colored Television, Danzy delivers incisive commentary on race, art making, parenting, marriage, and Hollywood through the lens of her middle-aged novelist protagonist. We cringe, we laugh, and we relate, but most of all, we marvel at Senna's imagination and brilliance. It is my honor to introduce Danzy Senna, the 2025 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winner for fiction.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction and for this award, which means so much to me. It's such an honor, especially right now in these times. And I want to thank the entire jury, Peter Ho Davies, Charles King, Taya Miles, and Disha Filial, and the chair, Natasha Trethaway, these amazing writers and scholars, for seeing this book and not mistaking my comedy for lightness, and for seeing that I was working through these ideas that for me are very heavy ideas, but I needed them to be carried through by this spirit of comedy. What I've been watching unfold for the past few years in American culture is both familiar and strange to me, as somebody who was born in 1970. I was born in Boston, the middle child of 2 writers, a Black man from the Deep South and a white woman who called Boston the Deep North because of the racism embedded there. My parents were part of the wave of interracial couples who married in the late 60s in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision on anti-miscegenation laws being struck down. I always have to remind my students how recently in our history it was illegal to marry somebody of another race. My parents did the sometimes impossible work of raising 3 mixed-race Black children in a time of busing, riots, and sweeping social change. I grew up between their households where we were often materially broke, like Jane in my novel, but I now see the wealth of what was being handed down to me. I grew up with a sense of multiracial Blackness, thinking of myself as a Black girl who could pass as white but never had any desire to do so. My ability to disappear into worlds of whiteness gave me a sense of myself as a spy, a witness to the way people talk when they think they are alone. And in a sense, this spying quality led to me as a writer. All writers are spies. When I got to college and began to study American literature, I was surprised that I could not find an American novel about Black, white, mixed-race characters that had been written in many, many, many decades, and that was not looking at us from the outside as spectacles or tragedies. Not since Nella Larson could I find such a representation. All the mixed characters I saw desired to be white, were pathologies. I wanted to write mixed characters like the ones that I knew, who saw themselves on a continuum of Blackness and yet still existed in the liminal space, which was interesting to me. It was the lens through which I saw America. And so I want to thank the jury for seeing this in my work, and to the Anisfield-Wolf Prize for continuing to do the work of valuing these dirty words, diversity, and studies of race that I think are so much a part of the American literary canon. And I don't really think there's a book of American literature that does not have to do with race, whether it knows it or not. I want to just take a moment to thank my parents, my mother, Fannie Howe, who, sorry, I'm a little emotional, who died just a month ago. Her identity as a poet was inseparable from how she mothered us, and she gave me a love of language, play, invention, taught me how to exist in imaginary worlds. She was also actively engaged with dismantling white privilege. And I want to thank my father, a scholar of race and culture, who gave me and my siblings political consciousness, Black consciousness, and an international perspective on liberation. My father was translating Palestinian poets in the late 60s and 70s, and as we stare at the horror of the genocide happening in Gaza right now, I am so grateful for his early education. Finally, I want to thank my husband, Percival Everett, and our sons, Henry and Miles, whose brilliance and iconoclasm give me strength. And I want to say to young people, I have been so inspired by your generation's spirit of rebellion. I have not given up on this country. America is my only homeland. Your encampments and protests were a beautiful act of love for humanity, and I want to encourage you to continue to fight for this country, this experiment of America, and to continue to bear witness and to keep giving voice to your rage and hope, to trust yourselves. History is on your side. Thank you.
And now, please welcome back to the stage Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards Jury Chair, Natasha Trethewey, to present this year's awards in poetry and lifetime achievement.
Got to gather myself after that. Okay, picture, if you will, a librarian, surrounded daily by books, filling shelves, anchoring displays, stacking up on carts. And then imagine harboring an unspoken desire to someday write one of those books, or several for that matter. That's the path that ultimately led Janice N. Harrington to join us today as the 2025 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winner for her monumental collection of poems, Yard Show. It was the mid-1990s when Janice, librarian by day, returned to her old dream of writing poetry. She'd rise early and write poem after poem, many of which focused on her family and memories of the South. The countless drafts eventually formed her first book of poems, Even the Hollow My Body Made Is Gone, which won the A. Poulin Jr. Poetry Prize and the Kate Tufts Discovery Award for Poetry. In addition to poetry, Janice's books also now populate the children's sections of libraries. To date, she's written 8 of them. Yard Show, some of you may know, is an African-American vernacular aesthetic practice of cultivating and decorating outdoor space, making use of reclaimed and repurposed objects. I used to see that a lot around my home state, Mississippi. Janice draws from that theme using precise language and meticulous details in the service of reclamation, uprooting the limited notion of the American heartland that renders African American presence invisible in the national imagination. In so doing, she creates a particular Eden, wild, original, unfettered, another way of seeing, another kind of beauty. NPR reviewer Susanna Lane called Yard Show a consistently beautiful collection, adding, "These are poems I will turn to again and again." She won't be the only one. This book knocked my socks off. Please join me in welcoming to the stage librarian turned poet and now 2025 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winner for poetry, Janice N. Harrington.
A wasp settles on my eyelid, but when is attention ever without risk? Thank you to the Cleveland Foundation, to the vision and legacy of Edith Anisfield-Wolf. Thank you for the generosity and careful attention to writing and writers that Natasha and each of the Anisfield-Wolf jurors brought to all of our work. And thank you to Courtney and Melissa, to the Guggenheim Foundation, to Kavi Khanum, and my husband, Robert Dale Parker. I am astonished to be here and to join the inspiring legacy of this award. A wasp settles on my eyelid, but when is attention ever without risk? In Yard Show, I struggle to answer what is place? How have Black lives transformed and been transformed by the rural Midwest? Looking for answers, I talked with artists and everyday people. I visited Black communities and historical sites. In other words, I paid attention. I listened to Black Midwesterners, invisible artists who turn their yards, homes, and neighborhoods into sanctuaries, spaces where beauty and strangeness and pleasure are allowed and given shelter. Black folks who know that there are many ways to cause that good trouble. And frankly, they're just plain stubborn. They believe that even the smallest act, the yard, this garden, this refusal to give in to ugliness, all of our acts of attention, maybe even the attention we give to a poem, can change things. I'll read 2 poems, excerpts from the poetic sequence Yard Show 1 and A Shining Lure. African American yard shows are powerfully rhetorical spaces where dross is turned into gold, where ordinary materials are sanctified, and where space is consecrated. John Beardsley. I should have paid attention to flowered urns lined in solemn symmetry along the drive, to Peter Pan in painted knickerbockers, to his cement fingers cupped to painted lips, calling what query, what answer, whose distant ear. I should not have dismissed as déclassé or disavowed plaster ducks and plastic hens, a pug, a lion cub, 2 ponds, 3 fountains, all the wrought iron filigree and sconces, but should have weighed instead her argument, denial of restraint or boundary beyond her own. Black Versailles, black Baroque, ado, outdo, and overdone, no minimal or less. I don't like a whole lot of space. Looks bare till you put something in it. Didn't her yard trouble? Didn't her hanging baskets and red bricks say, look, say, I'm here? Didn't the hoe she drove into that black dirt, drove that time into a snake's spine, prove that this space, this right here, belonged to her? When it gets bad, I just get out there in my garden, get to digging, and the world just goes away. World, she said, meaning all that mess outside her gate that she tried to sway with concrete swans, bird baths, and a red-capped gnome. Yard work, spirit work, woman's work. Come with me, she says. Help me feed the fish. We go to her backyard pond, the one she dug before he could come home and tell her what to do. The one she saw in her mind. I knew what I wanted, didn't need a blueprint. We sit and gaze into gone by, watch another Aphrodite rise, while the long ago, in bobby socks and penny loafers, belly swollen with her first child. Who can tell what beauty is? Fanon asked. She asked, aren't they pretty? The fish come for pellets spilled from a plastic scoop. They come for her laughter, though the water distorts the notes. Pleasure, a language the light speaks, a language this black woman knows and has tried so long to teach. The interstate sliced through predominantly African American neighborhoods. Most of the garden features have been erased. Paul Mullins. But isn't any black woman's garden ephemeral? Beware of dog. Property protected by chain link fence around the perimeter, steel padlocks. In her yard, Plastic waterfalls spill into plastic pools, tea roses, bronze dolphins leaping beside a brick wall, birdhouses, a concrete Dionysus whitened with paint, 10 basins tipped and staggered into fountains. They think black people don't have anything. They think it's all slums. To hold, to make, to claim a rose, though her garden was never just its beauty, but always foil and remedy for loss, for less than, for that assumed poverty. They think black people don't have anything. A shining lure. Beside the back porch, a crow hangs a string of meat from the magnolia's limb. Poor garter snake, poor ribbon, no longer container for the reptilian. But still, your scales shine, still they school that we might, couldn't we, shouldn't we, by shining lure, or by the clemency of our bodies' brief flare, deny, fend off, or pierce that coming dark. That we might, couldn't we, shouldn't we, by shining lure, or by the clemency of our bodies' brief flare, deny, fend off, or pierce that coming dark. Thank you.
All right, congratulations again to our 2025 winners for nonfiction, fiction, memoir, and poetry. I just love being on this jury. I mean, when you see who we get to select and their work, I feel with a pride that I don't even think I deserve to have, but this evening's final award recognizes lifetime achievement for a full body of work. Unfortunately, Yusef Komunyakaa, our Lifetime Achievement Award winner, is unable to attend this evening. But fortunately, as those familiar with his poetry can attest, Yusef Komunyakaa's spirit and singular voice are ever present. He's taken us back to what he described as the magic city of his childhood in the lush, rural Louisiana landscape, terrain that sets his destiny as a poet. Later, we are witness to his days as a correspondent during the Vietnam War and his work as managing editor of the Southern Cross, which earned him a Bronze Star. Those experiences and insights would later emerge in his seminal text, Dien Ki Dao, a book that is among the finest literature about the Vietnam War, exploring Black soldiers in battle, with many poems suspended in the present tense, the way the harrowing events live on as accumulated experience. Throughout his 13 books of poetry, Yusef holds confrontation and celebration with open palms, staring resolutely at American history with adept precision, restraint, and tonal variation. In 1994, he was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. For decades, he has shared his expertise, mentoring countless aspiring poets. He mentored them even when he didn't know he was mentoring them. One of the 2 books that my father gave me when I headed off to graduate school was Yusef's Magic City. It taught me how I could write about the magic place that I'd come from too, my deep south. His gift to us, to humanity, is that he has drawn back the curtain for all of us to see. He has said that the gift of the poet is to see behind things. Thank goodness he helps us to do that. Please join me in watching this video tribute to one of America's greatest poets, winner of this year's Anisfield-Wolf Book Award for Lifetime Achievement, Yusef Komunyakaa.
One poem I carried around in my psyche is this little poem here called Venus's Flytraps. I am 5, wading out into deep sunny grass, unmindful snakes in yellow jackets out to the yellow flowers quivering in sluggish heat. Don't mess with me, 'cause I have my Lone Ranger 6-shooter. I can hurt you with questions like silver bullets. The tall flowers in my dreams are big as the First State Bank and eat all the people except the ones I love. They have women's names with mouths like where babies come from. I am 5. I'll dance for you if you close your eyes, no, peeping through your fingers. I don't suppose to be this close to the tracks. One afternoon I saw what a train did to a cow. Sometimes I stand so close I can see the eyes of men hiding in boxcars. Sometimes they wave and holler. For me to get back, I laugh when trains make their dogs howl. Their ears hurt. I also know bees can't live without flowers. I wonder why Daddy calls Mama honey. All the bees in the world live in little white houses, except the ones in these flowers, all sticky and sweet inside. I wonder what death tastes like. Sometimes I toss the butterflies back into the air. I wish I knew why the music in my head makes me scared. But I know things I don't supposed to know. I could start walking and never stop. These yellow flowers go on forever, almost to Detroit, almost to the sea. My mama says I'm a mistake, that I made her a bad girl. My playhouse is underneath our house, and I hear people telling each other secrets.
Though Yusef is unable to be with us tonight, we are so grateful to have with us 2 of his former students, critically acclaimed poets Nicole Seeley and John Murillo, to share a few words about him. Earlier in the year, John and Nicole released an anthology of essays, letters, and poems from dozens of emerging and established writers, revealing the profound impact that Yusef Komunyakaa has had on their lives and their practice. Please join me in welcoming John Murillo and Nicole Seeley to the stage.
Hello. It is an absolute honor to accept this award on behalf of our beloved teacher, mentor, and friend, our dear Yusef Komunyakaa. If you know Yusef, you know how shy and soft-spoken he is, and how uncomfortable he might have been speaking in front of so many. That said, he really does wish he could be here and passes on his regrets. On his behalf, we'd like to thank the Cleveland Foundation, the prize jurors and administrators and staff, especially Zan Forrest Phillips, Courtney Morrow, and Melissa Huber. We would add to these thanks Bogalusa and all the cities that raised him, the institutions that have supported him, and the people that have loved him. Last but not least, all of you who have read him. Thank you. And as Yusef would say, keep the faith. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you to everyone here for being a part of the legacy of the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards and for committing to helping shape our future. I would be remiss without acknowledging the land upon which we reside. It is with deep gratitude and appreciation to all of those who lived and worked here before us, those whose stewardship makes our residence possible on this traditional homeland of the Lenape, Shawnee, Wyandot, Miami, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and other Great Lakes tribes. We also acknowledge the thousands of Native Americans who call Northeast Ohio home. I would like to thank Lillian Curry for her bold leadership and steadfast commitment to the power of literature and the arts to transform the city of Cleveland. While tonight's ceremony comes to a close, the 90th anniversary celebration continues. Join us tomorrow at the Cleveland Public Library MLK branch at 9 a.m. for a suite of conversations, poetry readings, and book signings with past Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winners. Then, in the afternoon, the Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards will host a literary crawl with 4 back-to-back events in the Ohio City neighborhood, all within walking distance. There will be more details as you exit the venue, along with a special gift from us to you. For tonight, the party continues across the street at the ballroom at Park Lane, which is catty corner across 105th Street. Please make your way there for book sales, book signings, and refreshments. There's lighting to guide the way, and you'll be greeted by a jazz ensemble as we've closed the street down for a beautiful September night. But before we close it out, I'd like to invite this year's honorees to join us on the stage one last time. Please come back up, Jonathan D.S. Schroeder, whose historical sleuthing, rediscovering, and documentation will shape American letters for future generations. Come forward, Danzy Senna, whose piercing humor and propulsive prose reveal the thin lines between race, class, and representation. Please join us on stage, Tessa Hulls, whose rich artistry and vivid language paint a picture of healing and self-discovery. And come forth, Janice N. Harrington, whose lyrical documentation of African-American material culture is a celebration to self-fulfillment and carving out belonging. Let's give them another round of applause. And with that, I would like to conclude our event this evening. Once again, thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you across the street at the reception or at tomorrow's events. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to the 2025 Anisfield-Wolf Book Award winners. We invite you to continue the celebration with food, drinks, book sales, and author signings across the street at the Ballroom at Park Lane. Thank you for attending.